Hey guys, so I want to tell you about a book that I just finished, and I don't really feel like it's suitable for a drunk review, so you're just gonna get me talking about a book today. The book in question is American Dervish by Ayad Akhtar. I think that's how you pronounce the name. I'm so sorry if that's wrong. It is a beautiful book. It's about this boy Hyatt whose mom's friend comes to live with him, and he had never really been exposed too much to the Quran growing up, but his Auntie Mina is a very devout Muslim, and she sort of teaches him the Quran and different Muslim teachings, and it explores a lot of really intense feelings that occur when you really stop to examine your religion. I've had some of these experiences myself with Christianity, but that is a whole other video. So I just have 4 bookmarks, but the pieces that I marked sort of talk about broader themes. There's a lot of talk about intention, and I think that's important. A lot of religious and cultural rituals and traditions stem from symbols or stories that sort of morph and become somehow bigger or different than the original intent. And in many cases, the ritual becomes more important than the meaning behind it. And there's this great section where Mina is explaining to Hyatt that the only reason you pray is to feel close to Allah, and it doesn't matter if you go through the motions if you don't actually have the intent to feel close to Him. And also in this section it talks about personal interpretation, and I found that a lot when I studied the Bible in college. In fact, the class I took was called Literature of the Old and New Testament, which implies that there is a literary meaning of the Bible rather than just the literal meaning. And Hyatt had a similar experience with the Quran, and I thought that was really interesting, and I really related a lot to that. And then there's a conversation that Hyatt overhears at a dinner party talking about Christians and the commercialization of Christmas and accumulations of large pools of money and how that is a Christian thing rather than a Muslim thing. And I found that whole conversation really interesting because these are Muslim men in America talking about it. They are the minority. But it just goes to show that just because somebody is a member of a minority group, that does not mean that they are not prejudiced against other minorities or even the majority. In this particular case, they're talking about Christians and Jewish people, and the whole idea of Muslims not liking Jewish people plays a huge role in this book. I don't want to give too much away, but it's a really interesting narrative arc that occurs in Muslim anti-Semitism, and I just found that really interesting. I didn't realize that it had been so prevalent, and maybe it still is prevalent in the Muslim community, I don't know. Oh, this exchange kind of broke my heart. Hyatt is telling Mina that his father no longer wants him to read the Quran, and she tells him that he shouldn't read the Quran in front of his father anymore because he pays the bills, and he's in charge, and until such a time he has to appease his father, and I think that's something a lot of kids struggle with, regardless of their background. We don't always agree with our parents, but we sort of have to go along with it just because they are responsible for us. They keep us alive. And to have it put so bluntly is kind of important and enlightening. Like, it's not something you really think about, but when it's said flat out like that, you're like, yeah, that's right. Mina has a really interesting way of looking at free will, and I'm not sure I agree, but it's an interesting perspective. It doesn't change anything, Beta. It was my choice. I made that choice. If I was going to make a different choice, I would have made it anyway. But why? Why what? Why didn't you make a different choice? You could say it's who I am, Hyatt, what I experienced in my life, and that made me what I am. Or you could say it was Allah's will for me. She paused. In the end, both ways of looking amount to the same thing. It is such a beautifully written book, and it is a very intriguing and complex story, and I definitely recommend it, and I am definitely going to check out more of his works. Thank you guys for watching. If you would be so kind as to like, share, and subscribe, that'd be cool of you. And if you want to go the extra mile and support me, I have a Patreon and a PayPal, both of which are linked below. I will see you next time. Bye.